So the biggest request on my community post so far seems to be a good Peggy Hill episode. No, it's not a challenge, it's actually fairly easy, and I've been meaning to do this. So let's get into Bill of Sales. Before we begin, I do have an amino that has all kinds of neat things that'll be going on really soon. I'm doing a clean 2019 overall, so no matter when you hear this, there's most likely going to be an event that you can get into on my amino. So if you're interested in any of those things, check out the link below and join my amino. So we start out with Hank checking in on Peggy because of her interference with the TV signal, back when televisions were not digital. She makes it crystal clear that she loves to put other people to work and then also watch them work, under her orders, which if you know Peggy is obvious. Why she has to do this in the middle of the night? Well, because as she says,
I am accustomed to setting my own hours, and unfortunately, these are the hours I have set.
Now obviously there aren't many episodes, if any, where the big D word comes up, and Hank here seems more polite than irritated, so it's an overall good introduction into the story.
I am a natural-born leader who can build business from zero to infinity. Must be highly motivated self-starter with own car. My God, Hank, that's me.
Oh yeah, I remember that business you started up. Oh wait, I don't. So the big story of this episode talks about pyramid schemes, or those businesses where it incentivizes you to order a lot of stock up front to sell immediately, most likely door to door, and pretty much forces you to hire someone under you to help you move out more, which creates an unsustainable pattern of hiring more and more until everyone's out of luck and the person at the top keeps all the money from the stock that was ordered and passed down. Now I really do appreciate the office is in the garage. I mean, mine is in my room until I find a bigger fit, but it also gives that makeshift amateur feel that many startup businesses have.
Well, that's the whole pitch right there. Any questions?
Yes, Metalife. What is that?
Products for living.
Okay, those are useful. And you sell them?
Yes.
Yeah, the episode doesn't give too much of an answer. The business is Metalife, and what they sell isn't exactly emphasized. I'm assuming health stuff like low-fat, energy bars, chocolate bars, vitamins, I don't know. But this is also pretty realistic. You're being told everything except what am I selling and what am I making. One thing Lainey here tells us is that the pin that she does emphasize was given to her based off of how much Metalife products that she sold. Now obviously when you look at its bare elements, the pin most likely is worth nothing, but it does represent a sort of perceived influence within the Metalife community. It's like a verified symbol on social media. Not worth much, but still sought after. This goes well with Peggy's need for validation.
Hey, mail guy, I'll take it.
Sign here, please.
Wow, please don't handle my mail again. I wonder if he signed it as Hank. That sounds like something Bill would do. Now I want to set up this next scene very carefully. It is clear the reason Bill wanted to deliver the package was not for the convenience, but more to socialize with Peggy. But throughout this episode, you'll see that Peggy delivers a negative reaction, and Bill doubles down on being more polite and helpful. Very important. There seems to be a little bit of a misconception when it comes to my views on Peggy. I believe of the Peggy Hill episodes that I've talked about, the main two are Goodbye Normal Jeans and Death in Texas, both negative King of the Hill reviews. At Peggy's core, she works within the show, as irritable as she may seem in certain episodes. I don't dislike her character all that much actually. It's just that there's a correlation between bad episodes and her making it worse. But here's an example of that exact mentality Peggy has, being used for good. And I'll compare it to Goodbye Normal Jeans so you can see these exact scenes back to back. Here Peggy pushes her products on Hank and Luann to sell at their job and college respectively. Obviously both are concerned and don't really want to do it, but also don't want to deny Peggy of what she is passionate about. Now this is annoying to watch, but fine, because within the story it is natural for her to seek out easy staff members rather than going through the hard task of hiring actual people. Peggy is lazy in that way and would rather instruct other people to work rather than doing it herself. Compare this to her pushing the fact that Bobby shouldn't cook dinner because he's a boy. No, not because it isn't realistic for her to say that, but because Bobby cooks better than her. That is annoying, and she shouldn't be fighting with her son in that way for entertainment, or at least write it better so I'm not mentally banging my head on the wall. In short terms, this is fine because it's natural within the story progression. The latter isn't fine because it doesn't make too much sense for Peggy to turn on Bobby for something specific in that specific way. So Dale apologizes for his Y2K hysteria, which is a reference to another episode, Helenium, if you guys want me to cover that episode next. Dale goes from occasionally creeping out Peggy to full-on stalker mode, watching her as all the neighbors, including Con, reject her sales pitch. This is pretty normal when it comes to sales, by the way. But that raised obsession of Peggy happens in front of Hank. Remember, Bill was there drinking with Hank, Dale, and Boomhauer? I guess Hank's okay with it. Now here's a scene that doesn't make too much sense to me. Okay, so earlier Bill approached Peggy to buy her wares, getting to the point where Peggy would desperately ask Dale twice rather than asking Bill once. Bill wanted to know what he can get for a quarter. So while yes, it does look like Peggy skipped Bill because she doesn't want to deal with his personality, it's equally showing that she could have came to the logical conclusion that Bill didn't have any money and it would have been a waste of time. Why not originally say that you had money is the true question. So Peggy ends up doing a business meeting, using those two words as loosely as possible, which ends up with Luann being fired. What makes this one of the funnier jokes is that you can tell that Hank wanted to be fired, but just because he sold a box, just one, that keeps him on the team. Plus the look Luann gives to Hank is priceless. So what will Peggy do if she can't sell and her team refuses to sell?
I was carrying it up your path, and I got to thinking...
You ate my bars?
No, I sold them.
Bill, I'm gonna use you.
And this starts the newfound relationship between Peggy and Bill. Peggy just wants the money, Bill just wants the attention. Happy relationship. At least happy enough. They also do censor in on the fact that Bill's gross, and Peggy is very aware of this fact. In a very cold way, Peggy assigns a large quota of sales to Bill, who is at first nervous, but he ends up accepting it anyway because the alternative of being tossed aside by Peggy is the worst option, to him anyway. He ends up doing it, selling it in a pretty interesting way, on the job. I do think it's interesting the way that Bill ends up targeting it to people in different ways so effortlessly. It's almost as if he has more talents than he gives off. But now the shoe is on the other foot, and that's not foreshadowing at all. Because of the requirement that the person who sells the chocolates is the one who goes on the fancy trips, Peggy now has to get Bill to invite her. You see, she's not into Metalife, she's not even into sales, she's into management and being successful, even if none of her skills help Bill in the slightest. This next scene is also well done. He spends a lot of it clueless, being a normal slob that likes Peggy, but Peggy manipulates Bill into thinking that he's doing just fine, and business etiquette requires, not prefers, requires Peggy to tag along with him. Not like Bill would have invited anyone else anyway.
Oh, Hank, my very first business trip. I am finally getting the recognition that I have always given myself.
Isn't this Bill's trip? Didn't he win it? Aren't you just his guest?
Hank, you're fired.
Classic. They build up the luxury, higher class lifestyle here in these next few scenes, being in a suite, traveling with well-known businessmen, and having champagne with personal cards dedicated to you. This all gets into Peggy's head, and for someone like Bill, whose sole goal was to please Peggy, it doesn't hit him the way that it hits Peggy, which is why Bill looks at the situation in a very linear way. Peggy, who's high on luxury, lets Bill sleep in the same suite as him, on the couch, rather than at the pool. Not exactly a 180 just yet, but much more different than when she didn't acknowledge much of what he said and showed a very sour reaction towards his presence.
So, Luann, you still going to community college?
Uh-huh.
Bobby?
Yeah?
What?
You said Bobby.
Oh. Yep. Who are we kidding?
Also classic. So now that Peggy is well adjusted to being with quote more important people, she lets it get to her head, instructing Bill to sell more because of an even bigger conference with even more quote unquote important people. Notice how in this episode very little is said about Metalife. In fact, any dialogue towards it is much more towards what it brings you if you sell it, which already sounds shady.
Honey, put me down for another 1,000 bars.
You know, you have to sell them to get to nationals. Or buy them yourself. We really don't care.
Go ahead and put me down for 2,000 of those bad boys.
Put me down for another 2,000 bars.
Mike, another 2,000 bars.
Nice detail that they don't really care what happens to the product after the money is exchanged. Right here is part of the pyramid scheme. Your manager goes to their manager and it keeps going to the top. And that process keeps going until you reach the top. Who keeps all the money? Because you're putting your eggs into a basket that may be hiring others who are hiring others, and a cycle goes on. It shows why Lainey is so happy. Now we get to the big scene. Bill and Peggy look up at the moon, do some small talk, which leads into Peggy being nice. And no, not being nice, but still still being defensive, no not being nice and still getting in wisecracks, genuinely nice, which may be a surprise to many, but not on the level of Bill. In fact, Peggy being nice pushes away Bill. The pin that he won fair and square, he thinks he doesn't deserve it.
Bill, you are a kind, hardworking, superhuman people person who's taking us to nationals. Oh, Bill Dotrieve, I love you.
What are you doing? Stop it! Leave me alone! Keep the jacket, keep the pen, keep the moon! I quit!
Alright, let's talk romance. Again. So one of the biggest counter arguments to why people may think this isn't a good episode is because Bill acts so unnatural when being treated nice by Peggy finally. Since it feels like a departure of his character, it makes the episode fall apart. Not quite, at least to me. Speaking in a very general sense, Bill has had a miserable life, in many facets. He's had a horrible childhood, Lenore, who left him, and the army, which doesn't hold its arms open to warm fuzzy feelings within the show. So because of this, it's logical to assume that the way that Bill feels affection is through trying to satisfy someone. But you cannot satisfy someone who's satisfied, which means that Bill has reached a destination he'd never thought he'd reach, which led to this reaction. Some people enjoy the climb and the journey of pursuing something, and once they reach the destination, the passion for said thing could dwindle. Have you ever gotten a game after months of hype, or a movie and you were excited about it the first few days, and then the hype just rolled off and you weren't really into finishing it? This is Bill, and it's a completely natural, completely normal, completely human reaction. The kiss on the cheek was just icing on the cake. She tries to cancel the orders, Lainey freaks out, knowing well enough that it was a pyramid scheme. Then Peggy has to play the role of Bill and satisfy him. Although at this point in the story, she really doesn't know what she did to set Bill off. Then, and there's no other way I can explain this, they have a roast off.
Hey, Baldy, if you're looking for the hair on your head, why don't you check your shoulders and your back?
Get off my lawn. I don't fertilize with poo.
Oh, never mind. You couldn't have gotten me to nationals anyway. Lazy, good-for-nothing quitter.
Whoa, just hold on.
One chance. Tomorrow morning. My garage, 7.
It leads into Bill slowly deteriorating because of the back-breaking labor that he's forced to do. But all of it leads into this scene here that I want to play out for you guys to see. This scene here is what makes this the best Peggy Hill episode.
I did not say you could take a break, did I?
No. Ow. Oh.
Bill.
Yeah.
Bill, you're fired.
I can do it. Ow, I can sell. Ow, I can sell all these. Ow. We can go to nationals in that what you want?
Not if it means taking advantage of a friend.
Mind you, this is good for two big reasons. The less obvious of the two is that Peggy is only being mean to Bill because that is what makes him happy, so that he can sell with a good conscience. You can see this with the fact that Peggy had to get material to be mean towards him. Her general disgust in this episode came from justifiable creepy behavior and him being a slob more than anything else. If she didn't need to do what she did, it was super clear that she wouldn't have. The other reason, the more obvious one, is that she put her ego aside to help out Bill, even if it took him physically bleeding for her to see this. Sometimes that is the kick that people need, and she explains that she was using him both at the beginning of this exchange and towards the end here. She also admits that they are friends, but this doesn't mean that they become close and whatnot. The dynamic is that Bill wants to please someone who cannot be pleased, or should not be, for if he did, then he'd push her away. Grim, maybe, cruel, kind of, realistic, absolutely. And this episode ends with Bill thinking that it may be a scam. Godspeed, Dotrieve. And that was Bill of Sales. What were your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, message me on Amino if you've seen this episode. Let's talk about it. Links down below. Special thanks to the patrons of January, and until next time, take care. Alpha out.